Good evening, all. Thank you for joining us for this Know Your Rights webinar. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por asistir con nosotros en este webinario, Conozca sus derechos. I want to share a few housekeeping rules. This session is being recorded and will be shared with you all after the event. Quiero compartir algunas reglas de la casa. Esta sesión está siendo grabada y será compartida con ustedes después del evento. We have translation services for this webinar in Spanish. To access that translation feature, please follow the directions in the Zoom chat. Contamos con servicios de traducción para este webinario en español. Para acceder a esta función de traducción, sigas las instrucciones en la chat de Zoom. Now, please welcome Senator Eloise Reyes. Ahora, por favor, den la bienvenida a la senadora Eloise Reyes.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here with all of you. As mentioned, I'm Eloise Gomez Reyes. I'm your state senator. And as your state senator, I want to welcome you to the Know Your Rights workshop. I love speaking my Spanish, but there's no need for me to translate because we have Claudia who will be translating and will do a much better job. As you will hear from many of our local, state, and national leaders today, this webinar is about our collective responsibility to ensure that everyone is informed about their rights here in California. This is why I have partnered with my favorite assembly member, Robert Garcia, and other wonderful and committed colleagues, state experts, and advocates to make this information available to you and to bring this critical information today. Information from trusted partners is the greatest counter we have that is available to misinformation that is often shared. This is why I want to thank our State Attorney General, Chirla, the Mexican Consulate, IC4IJ, and ICIJ, and the number of elected leaders for committing to speak to our community this evening and for making themselves available after our webinar to the community. As we know, the Inland Empire has deep ties to the immigration community. They are the builders, the agriculture workers, and the small business owners who have built the foundation of this community. Our local economy, as well as the economy of the state of California, relies on our immigrant community, and our society has and continues to benefit from their cultural collaboration. These individuals who are our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, come from different walks of life. We have those who are refugees, asylum seekers, family of US citizens, those living in mixed status households, and others seeking a better future for their families. We must always remember this and recognize that in periods of uncertainty like we face today, nothing is more important than knowing your rights. As your senator, I am continuing to fight for all of my constituents through legislation I've introduced, as well as through direct services offered here at my district office in San Bernardino. This year, I'm introducing a number of pieces of legislation, but one in particular will require employers to notify their employees of their rights when they're hired and to continue to notify them annually. And to notify them to make sure that when there are emergencies, that emergency contacts have been gathered and the families are notified of situations where there has been an arrest or a raid at the workplace. I'm also gathering support in partnership with Chirla on a funding request for the Dream Resource Grant Program that I created and had signed into law in 2023. Dream Resource Centers provide students, regardless of their citizenship status, with the resources they need to be successful in the classroom, including everything from access to critical social safety net programs to assistance with navigating a complex immigration system. As many of us know, California is home to approximately 40% of the nation's total undocumented youth population, making this an incredibly important effort. We are also fighting for funding to support the critical work being done right here in the Inland Empire by many nonprofit organizations supporting our immigrant community, many of whom are on this webinar today. Together, I know we can get these priorities across the finish line. In closing, I want to acknowledge the fear that many are facing in this moment. In times like these, we can either choose to move back or we can step forward. And my hope is that by empowering those in attendance today with information regarding what to do, whether ICE is showing up at your door or someone demands something from you in another situation, we want to make sure that you are empowered, that you know you have rights and protections here in California. As a proud daughter of immigrants, I am here with you and will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder beside you during the days ahead. I know these next 4 years will be challenging, but all challenges are overcome by unity, strength, and resilience. I was taught at a young age, as a young girl, that faith and determination can move mountains. And I still believe this. I look forward to hearing from our great panelists on this critical information. And I hope that when you leave, you realize that you have great rights and that you get to exercise your rights. Thank you all so much for being here today. And now it's my great honor to introduce the assembly member that represents the 50th Assembly District, a district I used to represent, and I wanted to make sure that the best representative could be there. And I am so happy, so pleased, so honored to introduce my dear friend, your Assembly Member, Robert Garcia.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Reyes, for your wise words and kind introduction. And good evening, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to join Senator Eloise Gomez-Reyes and I for this important webinar. I would like to thank all our colleagues from the Inland Empire and surrounding areas who have partnered with us to make this event possible, especially in moments like this. It is very imperative that we join together to stand with our undocumented community as a united front to share important resources and clarify misconceptions. So today you'll hear from several presenters who will share their expertise and provide valuable resources to ensure you have the tools and knowledge to navigate through these challenging times. So I hope that we can take this information we learn here and continue to share with others, our undocumented community. We are definitely living in uncertain times, and for our undocumented community, these uncertainties are even greater. We are in a political climate where anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies are not just words, but they have real consequences for undocumented individuals and their families. And this uncertainty leaves many vulnerable to misinformation, legal risks, and exploitation. That is why this Know Your Rights webinar is critical. It's not just about awareness, it's about protection. And so when people understand their legal rights, they're less likely to fall victim to wrongful detention or intimidation tactics. So although California has remained committed to take proactive steps to push back against the federal administration's overreach, we must do our part to share accurate information and trusted resources to create a network of support. So as the proud son of immigrants, I understand firsthand the struggles and sacrifices that so many in our undocumented community endure in pursuit of the American dream. I know the fear and anxiety that comes with uncertainty is not just for individuals, but for entire families. And so as an educator, I have seen firsthand how immigration status impacts students from being able to focus in school or not being able to focus in school, or worse, not even attending at all for fear of deportation or family separation. And no child should have to carry that burden, and no family should have to live in that fear. My office, as well as everyone here, is committed to stand in solidarity with the undocumented community. In response to harmful federal policies that seek to marginalize, intimidate undocumented individuals, California is taking action. The California legislature is preparing several bills to protect undocumented individuals and keep families together. I sit on the Committee on Education, where my colleague and Chairman Al Marisucci is committed to protecting our students and their families by ensuring our schools remain safe spaces through Assembly Bill 49. We remain committed to protecting undocumented individuals and pushing back against policies that threaten to separate families and undermine basic human rights. This webinar is just one of many ways we are working to provide clear, accurate, and actionable information to those who need it most. I encourage all of you to take full advantage of the knowledge and expertise that our presenters will share today. Understanding your rights is the first step in protecting yourself and your loved ones. Once again, thank you to everyone here for taking time from their day to join us. And with that, I would like to introduce another community ally who is working at the federal level to protect and preserve the rights of the undocumented community, Congresswoman Norma Torres of the 35th Congressional District. Congresswoman Torres, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Garcia, and thank you, Senator Reyes, for your leadership in ensuring that our community has all of the information at their disposal. And of course, none of this could be possible without the help and support from Chirla. Chirla, I can't thank you enough for everything that you continue to do for our mutual constituents. And I know that you are in the trenches fighting and pushing back against these horrible policies of the Trump administration. I want to join everyone here in support of our immigrant community. And I simply want to say this Thursday, I will also host a Pláticas with Congresswoman Norma Torres, and it is Thursday at 6 p.m. You can go to my website at torres.house.gov to learn how to join with us. Thank you again to our state representatives and to the office of our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, for continuing to support our communities in the Inland Empire. And with that, I'm going to yield back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Senator Reyes Gomez, Assemblymember Garcia, and Congresswoman Norma Torres for joining us today. We appreciate your continuous support and advocacy. These three elected officials are not the only ones who are fighting for our undocumented community at the federal and state level. Up next, we have a short yet powerful video to share on behalf of the Inland Empire legislators who stand with the undocumented community. Please join me in watching this video.
Thank you, Senator Reyes and Assemblymember Garcia, for hosting this critical webinar. And I'd like to recognize our friends at Chirla and the Attorney General's office for giving our community the resources they need in this uncertain time. We're 1 month into the Trump presidency, and our community is feeling the uncertainty created by policies targeting both American citizens and non-citizens alike. I want to be clear. Regardless of your immigration status, you have guaranteed rights under the U.S. Constitution and California law. And whether you're at home, at work, or in a public setting like dropping your kids off at school or at church on Sunday, knowing these rights is critical to protecting yourself, your friends, and your family. In this difficult time, I want to remind you that you have a friend in Congress fighting against senseless policies that undermine the strength of America's long-standing values as a nation of immigrants. These next 4 years will be challenging, but together we will stand up for our communities, defend our values, and fight to provide opportunities for legal status for our dreamers, farm workers, and families who are just looking to achieve the American dream while contributing to our country. Thank you again, and please do not hesitate to reach out to our office if you have any questions.
Hola, soy la senadora Susan Rubio. Queremos darles las gracias a todos los que nos acompañan a este taller virtual. Es sumamente importante que pongan atención a la información que se les va a brindar. Yo también fui indocumentada y deportada a los 4 años. Entiendo el miedo y los nervios que tienen nuestras familias, pero queremos pedirles que se mantengan tranquilos. Su seguridad es sumamente importante para mí y para la legislatura y para todos los líderes que nos acompañan. Aquí estamos para ayudarles y tienen derechos bajo la Constitución. Por favor, manténganse con calma, que aquí estamos para ayudarles. Muchas gracias.
Hello, everyone. I am Assemblymember Juan Carrillo from Assembly District 39. Understanding your rights, especially when it comes to immigration, is more important than ever. That's why I'm inviting you to join the Know Your Rights informational webinar. In this webinar, you'll be joined by organizations like Chirla, the California Attorney General's Office, and the Consulate of Mexico, San Bernardino. Remember, you are not alone. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Our communities are under attack. But let me be clear, we will not stand for it. The Inland Empire is strong because of our diversity. and we will fight back against the unconstitutional executive orders that threaten our families. We will educate, we will organize, and we will protect our communities. Know your rights, stay informed, and remember you are not alone because we stand with you. So stay connected with my office for resources and support, and we will not back down from this historical moment. I am Assemblyman Corey Jackson.
Hi, I'm Senator Steve Padilla from the 18th Senatorial District, and I'm proud to represent the border between California and Mexico. I'm also proud to represent so many of you that I know are hurting right now, and I know that this is a scary time. So we welcome you, and we want to remind you that despite everything that is occurring in our country and all the uncertainty, you are not alone. And we are, regardless of what is said by anyone, anywhere, a nation of laws, and we will always be sure that our laws are protected. Your knowledge of your rights and your ability to use them in this time is your power and is your right. So stay tuned, participate, and we hope that this is very valuable to all of you. God bless.
Hola, soy el supervisor José Medina del Condado de Riverside. Quiero enviar un mensaje a nuestras comunidades inmigrantes. Estamos aquí para apoyarlos. Ustedes son parte de nuestro condado, nuestros vecinos, amigos y familiares. Sabemos que estos tiempos pueden ser difíciles, pero es importante que conozcan sus derechos. En el condado de Riverside seguimos trabajando para traer recursos y información. Sus contribuciones enriquecen nuestra comunidad y seguimos a su lado.
Thank you so much to our legislators for sending a message that you stand with and support the undocumented community. They are here to advocate for you. Next, I would like to introduce our first presenter from the Coalition of Humane Immigrant Rights of San Bernardino, also known as CHIRLA. They are one of the largest and most effective advocates for immigrant rights, organizing, educating, and defending immigrants and refugees in the streets, in the courts, and in the halls of power. Christopher Vasquez, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of CHIRLA.
Awesome. Thank you so much for providing us the space to be with you today. That video left me pumped. My name is Christopher Vasquez. I am the Regional Field Coordinator with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. We are incredibly honored to share this space with you all. Today, we're going to be going over a quick Know Your Rights presentations. We want to make sure that community is empowered to know what to do when in the event that they get stopped by either local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, or immigration law enforcement. This is our agenda for today. We're going to go over who CHIRLA is as an organization, some of our legislative victories. We're going to go over your constitutional rights, which do not change even if you are undocumented in this country. We're going to role play a little bit what to do when we encounter ICE or CBP. We're going to go over a quick DACA update and some of CHIRLA's legal services we want to make sure that you're aware of and so that you can disseminate the information to the public. First things first, who is CHIRLA? We are one of the largest immigrant rights organization based out of Los Angeles. We were founded in 1986 as a result of Ronald Reagan's amnesty bill. Unfortunately, 1986 is the last time when a comprehensive immigration bill was signed, and as you can tell, based off of what's currently happening out in the federal government, we're due, right? We're due for another update. Our mission is to achieve a just society fully inclusive of immigrants, and we do this by building community power. We currently have about 1,500 due-paying members, and we take them to Sacramento, we take them to Washington, D.C. To provide a voice for the voiceless. I want to tell you a little bit about some of our legislative victories that we've had in California. This is just a small number of them. We've had our hand in passing about 100 laws here in the state of California. My absolute favorite is AB 540, which provides in-state tuition for undocumented students. AB 60, which provides driver's licenses for undocumented drivers. As of SB 184, as of January of last year, we are the first state in the country to provide Medi-Cal or Medicaid for everyone, regardless of their immigration status. So we're going to continue this fight to try to create a society that's fully inclusive of immigrants. All right, now for our constitutional rights. As has been said several times tonight, we all have rights under the US Constitution. This has been adjudicated by the Supreme Court several times, but sometimes we have certain magic words or we have to act a certain way for those rights to apply to us. So unless you know how to apply them specifically, they don't mean anything unless you know how to exercise them, right? Which is what we're going to be teaching you today. First thing I want to go over is CBP and ICE limits. Know what they can and cannot do. First things first, here in this country, you cannot be arrested without a warrant or without probable cause that you have committed a crime. As we've heard several times before, you are innocent in this country unless you're proven guilty. So when you're interacting with ICE or CBP, it's not up to you to prove that you are a citizen, that you have legal status. It's up to them to prove the opposite. So when we're interacting with ICE or CBP, we don't want to give them any information that would put you in a predicament for them to arrest you, right? Also, ICE or CBP cannot arrest or detain you based off of the color of your skin, the language that you speak, your religious clothing, or any other protected facets of your identity. This is called profiling. If you get profiled, working with a lawyer can help you work with a immigration judge to have any information or have yourself have the case against you thrown out specifically because they performed an illegal arrest, right? Also, ICE cannot enter your home, your property, or your vehicle without a judicial warrant that's signed by a judge. No warrant, no entry. So this is their limits. It's important to know this because this is what gives us the most power to live without fear in this country. So what are my rights? When you get stopped by CBP or ICE, what's happening is that they're performing an inspection, or they're trying to get information that they can use against you. So your best protection against arrest is for you to stay silent. And what you can do is you can go to your local congressperson, you can go to your local assembly person, you can go to organizations like SHRLA, like ICIJ, and you can get these nice little red cards that basically tell you exactly what your rights are. You also have a right to know whether or not you're being detained. So you can ask, am I free to go? If they say that you're not, if they say that you're not free to go, very simple, just stay silent. The idea is that unless they're able to get probable cause that you committed a crime or that you don't have legal status, they'll eventually have to let you go. So just stay silent, let them do their investigation, but don't provide them with any information that could incriminate you. Now, you also have a right to speak to an attorney in this country. So prepare yourself, go get a legal consultation, and carry your attorney's information with you. Have that on you at all times. So what not to do? This one's really important. So first thing, don't run. Maintaining calm is the most important thing that you can do. So fleeing or running away could provide probable cause for you to be arrested. You also don't want to open the door. As we said before, ICE cannot enter your property. They cannot enter your home or your car without a signed warrant. So don't open your door. Do not sign any documents without the advice of an attorney. What happens very often is that ICE or CBP can try to coerce you to sign documents that you may not understand, that may not be in your native language. And what happens very frequently is that people will sign voluntary deportation orders. Even citizens have been subject to voluntary departures. Isn't that terrible? We also want to provide the advice that lying to an immigration officer could be considered a crime. Don't lie. Don't say that you're a citizen when you're not. Carrying fake documents is a crime, so don't carry fake documents. Don't carry the documents of another person. And this one is really important. Carrying documents from a foreign country could be probable cause that you don't have legal status in this country. So if you have documents from another country, that could be your passport, a consular ID, leave those at home. All right, so we're gonna go over some scenarios, what to do when ICE comes to your house. As we discussed, don't open the door. Not even, don't even take off the security chain. Don't even take off the deadbolt. What happens sometimes is that ICE or CBP will hear that you are taking off the deadbolt. They'll take that as implied consent that you are providing them entry into your house, and sometimes they'll even open the door for you and storm in. What happens when they go in? Anything that that they investigate, say there's somebody else that's undocumented in your house, say you're a citizen and there's someone that's undocumented in your house, anything that they get during their investigation could cause an arrest. So we don't want to cause collateral damage. Don't open the door. One thing that a lot of us have now are those video cameras, those video doorbells, so those rings. Ask them to put their judicial warrant to the Ring doorbell. Ask them to put the judicial warrant to their window, slide it under your door, slide it under the mail slot. But whatever you do, don't open the door. As we discussed, they can't enter without a judicial warrant, and if that judicial warrant doesn't have your name or address, you don't have to allow them to enter your home. You can ask them to leave a tape to your door, slide it under, and tell them to come back with a judicial warrant. I also wanted to provide an example of what a valid judicial warrant looks like. That would be the one here in green on the left that says United States District Court. It should have your name, your address. It should be dated within the last 14 days, and it should be signed by a judge. If they have this, you have to let them in. What we're noticing, what's very common, is that USCIS or CBP or ICE will actually issue their own warrants. And those those administrative warrants don't provide them with access to your home or with the right to enter your home or your property. An example of that would be this one right here on the right. If it says U.S. Department of Justice, Immigration and Naturalization Services, you don't have to provide them access to your home. Again, tell them, leave your information at the door and come back when you have a judicial warrant. Easy enough, right? All right, what to do if ICE comes to my workplace? Just like if they come to your home, they need a judicial warrant signed by a judge to enter the workplace. I will say that there is a little bit of a difference because they can enter spaces that are considered public. So think of like a McDonald's. They can go all the way up to the counter up until there's spaces that say private property, do not enter. So if it's important that we have conversations with our employers, make sure that we have signs that say private property, because anything that has that goes past those signs you can deny them entry. And of course, keep calm, do not try to run or escape, because again, this will give them probable cause to arrest you. Now, what to do if you are in a public space? Again, you cannot be arrested unless there is evidence that you've committed a crime. So stay silent. They're going to ask you questions. What country are you from? Do you have legal status to be in this country? Don't answer those questions. You don't have to have conversations with them. Simply tell them, I am observing my right to remain silent. And again, the goal is for them to not have any evidence against you and eventually leave you alone. And a quick reminder, never carry fake documents or documents from another country. All right, I know that was very dense, and I want to thank you all for sticking with me. In practice, I want you to see what this kind of looks like. We're going to do some quick review, and maybe in the chat, you can tell me what they did wrong. Basically, what happened was the immigration officer comes to the car and says, "Hi, do you speak English or Spanish?" They say Spanish. What country are you from? We're from Guatemala. Do you have legal status to be here? No. Okay, what about the person next to you? Are they undocumented as well? Yes, we're both illegal. Okay, can you turn off your car? Basically, they did everything that they weren't supposed to do. They weren't supposed to have a conversation. They were simply supposed to stay silent, and hopefully that would provide them with the ammunition that this officer would have to go away and leave them alone. All right, now I want to thank you for sitting with me on that one. I know it was a little bit heavy. We're also going to go over a quick DACA update. So as of last month, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in the U.S. ruled that President Biden's updated DACA program was unconstitutional. What this means is that although it remains in place for current recipients, no new applications are being accepted. This is important because if you allow your DACA to lapse, you may lose DACA protection. So make sure that you're continuing to renew your DACA if you have that. What happens next? This case is unfortunately expected to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, which we expect will likely uphold the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision. Unfortunately, what could happen is that DACA could be fully terminated. President Trump has expressed a willingness to provide a pathway as of an interview that he did last month. But President Trump was also the one that issued the executive order that took the case to the Fifth Circuit Court. So it is a little unclear what that means. We don't know if he's going to use this as a bargaining chip to get something else. At this time, we just need to wait for it to go to the Supreme Court and see what they say. Awesome. This is the second to last slide. I did also want to provide some of Chirla's legal services. So Chirla offers nonprofit immigration legal services in both San Bernardino, Riverside counties, and Los Angeles County. So the phone numbers are right here on the screen. We offer general legal consultations. So we always recommend that people get consultations every 1 to 2 years because their immigration situation could change. Maybe their children turn 21 and they're now eligible for a family petition, adjustment of status. So some people that came, say, with a traveler's visa, came here under TPS, and now they have someone that can sponsor them. We can help them with an adjustment of status. There's U visas, which are for victims of violent crime. VAWAs are for victims of domestic violence. We help people with naturalization, which means that we help them get their citizenship. We also help with DACA renewals. Periodically, we'll get grants that will help us cover those fees. So just give us a call and we can tell you whether or not we can help cover your fees. We also have a workers' rights department. So we help people do just general workers' rights legal consultations. For those of you that didn't know, President Biden issued a deferred action program, kind of like DACA, that provides an immigration pathway for victims of labor violations. So we'll help them file the DALE paperwork, and we'll also help them file workplace violation complaints, whether that's with OSHA, whether or not it's a payment complaint, anything like that. We can help the general public with that. I want to thank you all for providing me with this time. I will leave you our immigrant assistance line. So if you have any community members that need any particular resource, you can provide them with our 888 number and we can refer them to the right place. Thank you so much for the space, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Christopher and Chirla, for joining us. The work you all do is critical to ensure that we have access to legal resources for our undocumented individuals. Next, we have a representative from the Attorney General's Office, Community Outreach Manager, Sarah Farouk. The Attorney General and the Department of Justice employees provide leadership, information, and education to serve our state and work honorably every day to fulfill California's promise. Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Nadia, and to the office for inviting me. I think I'm just going to wait for the slides. There we go. All right. Thank you for inviting me and inviting the California Department of Justice, the Office of the California Attorney General, to this important forum. My name is Sarah Farouk. I am the Border and Inland Empire Community Outreach Manager with the Office of Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement, CARE, here at California DOJ. Today, I'll be reviewing our immigration and hate crime resources. Before the new administration took over, California DOJ rolled out a series of resources for immigrant communities and families and organizations that serve them. All of those resources can be found in the link on the slides on our website, oag.ca.gov/immigrant/resources. I'm going to quickly go over some of the guidances and resources that we've put out they are the ones listed on the screen. So to start with, know your immigration rights and protections under the law. Some of the rights and protections include the right to apply for and secure housing without sharing immigration status, the right to access emergency medical care, the right to an attorney, whether arrested by police or ICE. State and local law enforcement cannot ask for your immigration status, share your personal information like your address, or assist ICE with immigration enforcement. Of course, that's with very limited exceptions. In addition to that, we have a guidance for immigrant students and families. We know that a lot of students are not going to school. A lot of parents and families are very worried. AG Bonta has recently reaffirmed to students, families, and educators that California schools are and will remain a welcoming, inclusive, and safe space for all. This, of course, includes immigrant students and children of immigrant parents. Every child and family has the right to keep their education records and personal information confidential. Our office has put out a guide for students and families that outlines the protections afforded to all families in multiple languages. Of course, I'm just going over, this is a brief overview of all of the resources. On the website, there are many resources with much more detail that you can look through to give you more of that information that would be helpful. The other resources to protecting yourself from immigration scams. I know that at this time when a lot of people are scared, there's a lot of fear, there's threats of mass deportations, increased presence of ICE, a lot of people are trying to seek any assistance they can get. And that oftentimes folks tend to utilize that and tend to provide illegitimate services to folks, and that increases the amount of immigration scams that happen in our community. And that, that's targeting folks who are in fear of a lot of those issues. And so we put out a guidance to avoid those immigration scams. So it's important to go to a legitimate legal aid organization for free legal help. I know some of the folks on here are a great resource for that. And they can also provide that support as well. Keeping your original documents in a safe place. Do not hire an immigration consultant or a notary. Do not give money or personal information to anyone who calls, texts, or emails you claiming that there is a problem with your immigration matter. So that's that, to make sure that you are keeping yourself safe, keeping your community safe under that threat of immigration scams. We've also put out guidances for public institutions such as superior courts, healthcare facilities, schools, shelters, and other places on best practices in avoiding the use of state and local resources to support civil immigration enforcement. Under those guidances that you'll see on our website, I know a lot of school districts, a lot of campuses, a lot of different public areas have created their own policies to protect their students. And so these policies that we've put out are to help guide those spaces to protect their constituency and their communities during this time. In addition to that, there are bulletins and guidances that we've put out to assist state and local law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, and defense counsel in complying with state law, regardless of changes coming from the Trump administration. Some of those guidances, as you'll see on our website, they're available in 13 languages, and they're all translated into Spanish. Lastly, we have set up an inbox to record information and gather data about ICE presence in the communities and potential violations of existing state law. Again, this does not provide legal services or legal assistance. This is just to record any potential immigration concerns in the community. So if there's increased ICE presence that you're seeing in certain areas in your regions, we'd like you to share out this information with us just so that we are keeping an eye out, monitoring the situations on the ground. And the email, I will show it in some of the future slides that I have here. But if someone can drop it in the chat, it's immigration@doj.ca.gov. Now, in terms of hate crime resources, We also wanted to share, unfortunately, in the light of the current president's xenophobic rhetoric and the uptick in hostility toward immigrant communities and many other communities, our office has also issued updated guidance and resources for law enforcement, prosecutors, and victims of hate crime. I just want to take a moment to say that if you witness or yourself are a victim of a hate crime, you should report it to your local law enforcement agencies. For more information about our hate crime resources, please visit the link in the chat and the link on the slides, oag.ca.gov/hate crimes. There's also the California versus Hate resource and hotline, the California versus Hate resource line and network. It's a non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline and online portal. You can make reports anonymously by calling the number 833-866-4283, Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time, or online at any time. For individuals who want to report a hate crime to law enforcement immediately or who are in imminent danger, please call 911. And for more information on the California versus Hate, please visit the californiaversushate.org. That's the website for a lot of the hate crime resources and supports that that department offers. And lastly, the California DOJ publishes a hate crimes in California report annually, and it includes hate crimes data and information. You can find more of that information on the same website that I've previously shared, and it's in the chat as well. It has more information and data regarding hate crimes reporting in your areas and in your regions, if that's something of interest to you or to your work. We can go to the next slide, please. Some additional resources that we have are the Law Help California or Immigration Law Help to find free and or low-cost legal assistance near you. If you believe your rights have been violated, report it to the California Department of Justice at oag.ca.gov/report. And if you believe you were subject to discrimination, harassment, or retaliation, please report it to us, to the California Department of Civil Rights at calcivilrights.ca.gov/complaint process. So that's if you see any incidents and you would like to report them, there is that reporting mechanism there. And then if we can go to the final slide there. Thank you. Please reach out to our office through care@doj.ca.gov for any questions you might have. If you're joining today as a representative of an elected office or a nonprofit organization, and you would like us to come and present to your communities and constituents, please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to come and present to your communities and share these resources. We have myself and other dedicated staff who are more than happy to come and present and share this important information with your community. Lastly, again, I mentioned this earlier for the immigration inbox. If you have anything you would like to report regarding immigration, that is just information that's happening in the community, please utilize the immigration@doj.ca.gov inbox. And I just wanted to say some closing words. Regardless of who's in the White House or Congress, Attorney General Bonta, California DOJ, my colleagues, and myself are here for you. We know that many people in California and across the country are feeling anxious, scared, sad, and worried, and uncertain about this, about our current administration. And I want to say I'm here to assure you, DOJ stands with you, the California Attorney General's office stand with you, and we are ready to serve, support, and advocate for all Californians. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this call. Thank you to my fellow presenters who are doing really important work in the community. And of course, thank you to the Office of State Senator Eloise Gomez-Reyes for the invite and for putting this really critical resource together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing the Attorney General's stance to fight against the administration's harsh immigration policies. Our support is not only coming from local and federal officials, but also from our neighboring countries. I would like to introduce Consul Julio Huerta and Alexis Medina on behalf of the Mexican Consulate. The Mexican Consulate of San Bernardino is a diplomatic representation of Mexico in San Bernardino, whose main objective is to serve and protect the interests of Mexicans residing or transitioning through this region. Consul Huerta, thank you so much for sharing a few comments.
Again, my name is Julio Huerta. Right now, I'm the consul in charge of the Consulate of Mexico in San Bernardino. So sorry for this little problem, and also because I joined a little bit late, but I'm here. I'm kind of in time. So I couldn't follow the previous presentations, but I know the topic, the general topic, and that some experts has already spoken before me. So I'm not going to go over details or specific advice of knowing your rights, but I will share with you what the consulate is doing, and some of these things are only and can only be done by the consulate. I'm sorry, English is not my first language. So what the consulate is doing? We are an official representative of the government of Mexico. We're entitled, and our mission is to protect the Mexican nationals here who face any kind of trouble, in this case, legal troubles, and in this case, possible deportations, right? So this term about protection, what it means, and it's linked to the consular protection. There are some tools that the government has, some diplomatic tools and consular tools, and we defend that. In what way? One of the most important is that we need to make sure, and we remind the different authorities, the law enforcement authorities, that once a Mexican national is in custody or is arrested or detained, and they have to offer and let him or her know that they can contact their consulate. So that's the consular notification. Once we know that some Mexican national has this problem, we are going to interview them, and from there it starts our legal advice and our consular protection, because these very first moments are crucial in this kind of processes, right? So we have spoken, for instance, with the Department of Police in San Bernardino, with the ICE authorities here in the region in San Bernardino and in Adelanto, California, the Adelanto Processing Center. So we are following every case of every Mexican that now is facing possible deportation. So that's very, very important. We have a formal alliance of formal programs with attorneys, with expert attorneys, and they, we work together. They are present at the consulate. They interview families of someone who is affected, or even we can link them with our nationals facing some sort of trouble. This program, I think we don't have enough time to go in detail, but just picture this, that we work with expert organizations and attorneys. But there are two other very important areas that is carried out by the consulate. One of them is a documentation area. Our nationals living here in this area and in some other jurisdictions in the United States, we have 53 consulates in the United States. The main service they request is related to documentation. How they get their passports. We don't know if they have the proper documentation or not to be here, and it doesn't matter. They request a Mexican passport. They request, and we issue a Mexican consular IDs called Matricula Consular. It's very important for them because it helps to do a lot of in their daily life to get services, to ID themselves. So again, we don't know if they have the documents or not, but they are Mexican nationals, and they are at the consulate every day, around 200 people. And there are some other documents requested by them, power of attorneys, the military service ID, the dual citizenship, and this is important, and has to do with today's presentation, because Mexicans facing deportation, or because they voluntarily are going to go back to Mexico and they have kids born in the United States, they can register them as Mexicans, right? So they can have that dual citizenship. And how is that good for them? Because they can have access and the benefits that Mexican nationals have in Mexico. So everywhere we go, because we're very active in this kind of presentations, in person, providing different information about the consular services, we receive this question all the time: how can I get my children, to get them that dual citizenship? Sorry, so that's very important. And that area overall is called documentation. The first area I mentioned, the protection, is related to legal advice, or legal affairs. And here we have Consul Alexis Medina. He is the head of that area. And another very important area is the community affairs. And in that area, we run different programs to empower the community, the Mexican community, and to help them to better assimilate to this country. They are here, and it's going to be really difficult to have all of them going back to Mexico. So these programs include education, financial education, health, mental health. Those are the most important. And with these programs, they are all the time learning how to navigate, how to assimilate, and how to make a positive contribution to this society, and not only being considered, as something negative. So I saw in the agenda that there was a topic about an app that has something to do with today's topic. Let me explain very briefly. All this information, we need to reach out to the community, and the best way we can disseminate information, the better for us. So we are using any possible and modern tools like social media, of course, the web page of the consulate. But once this administration started and this immigration policies, the new immigration policies are in place, we're using the technology. So now the Mexican nationals can download in their phones, either iPhones or Android and all of that, this app called Consulado Contigo, the consulate with you. And they have to register to create a user account, to have a password. And once they create the account, first they have access a general menu. And this menu, the first link it has, I think, is Know Your Rights, right? Like this, the title of today's presentation, Know Your Rights. And there are the advices that I assume were mentioned by the previous speakers, what to do if the police go to your house, make sure they have an order and all of that, right? But know your rights. They can also name or register a contact person they decide, and it shows the closer consulate with a GPS, with a map, what consulate is the closest to them. And it includes a button that we have called contact button, a red button. And if they push it by 5 seconds, it's gonna send an alert or a signal to the contact person they register, to the consulate, the closest consulate. In this way, there is a national call center that takes phone calls all over the United States. It's based in Tucson, Arizona, but it has a huge capacity. So they receive this signal, and once they identify that this Mexican person has some legal trouble, they refer to the proper consulate. So, we are starting with this app, what I saw in the program for today. So that's the way it works. And yeah, and also this signal is received at Mexico's headquarters, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters. So it's a way to to follow up with all these cases, to have the statistics. And it's something very new, but we're trying, the government of Mexico is trying to add new technologies, in this atmosphere of immigration policies. So sorry if I sound a little bit disconnected. It was a difficult evening before coming here, but that's the three main areas. And also, I'm gonna write in the chat a very useful address for internet, where you can find, it's in Spanish, but you can find all of the consulate services. One of the claims of the person is, I cannot get an appointment to go to a consulate. Now everything is gonna be easier with less requirement, using technology. Again, they can do it online, submit their paper so we can review it. So I'm gonna share it, and I hope that what I mentioned made a little bit sense. And here I am, and reach out to the consulate if you think some Mexican national needs help. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Cónsul Huerta y el Cónsul de México, for being here. Les agradecemos su apoyo en estos momentos tan difíciles y inciertos. Up next, I'd like to add that almost every country has a consulate or embassy in the United States. This is not just specific to Mexico or Latin American countries. We encourage you to contact our offices to help direct you. Our last presenter is from an organization known as Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice Rights, or IC4IJ. IC4IJ is currently focusing on advocacy, changing the narrative, and capacity building by engaging in policy advocacy, community organization, and education, and rapid response to ICE and Border Patrol operations. Hector from IC4IJ and attorney Russell Hawade and Laura from SBCSC. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Nadia. I'll make it kind of brief because I know we're running a bit on time and we want to keep some time for Q&A. So the IC4IJ is a coalition of over 35 organizations that serve the immigrant community in the Inland Empire, so both San Bernardino and Riverside County. And Chris from Chile talked a little bit about the Know Your Rights stuff. I just want to fill in a couple of gaps. And so it's important to keep in mind that immigration enforcement, there's three main agencies that are in charge of immigration enforcement. ICE, which is the one that's most well known, Customs and Border Patrol, which are at international ports of entry, so international airports, and Border Patrol agents that are within 100 miles of a US border. And so it's also important to distinguish between the different vehicles of these agencies. So for example, Border Patrol, CBP will use the photo that's right here, that green stripe on the vehicle. That's often confused with USDA, the vehicle that says law enforcement. You'll see those vehicles a lot, like in San Bernardino towards the forest, just because they're forest protection agencies. They are not immigration enforcement. And then for ICE, you'll often see them in unmarked vehicles, vehicles that have license plates that may be like a dealer license plate. You'll see them have tinted windows, and they'll have the lights inside of the car, not outside of the car. And some folks have been confusing the vehicle that's towards the bottom here with the blue stripe. As ICE, that's Federal Protective Services, so you'll often see them outside of or around federal buildings. So if there's like a Social Security building or an ICE building in your neighborhoods or your community, you'll often see FPS vehicles there. They are not immigration enforcement, so they cannot stop you from immigration enforcement. Their only task is to protect that building and the employees that work at that building. This map just shows that 100-mile radius of border enforcement in which Border Patrol operates. Of course, we know ICE operates nationally, and CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, operates at ports of entry. I can skip through this. One more thing that I wanted to highlight, Kid v. Mayorkas was litigation that the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice was an organizational plaintiff in, and it makes these counties in Southern California unique in terms of how immigration enforcement can take place. So for the counties of San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, Los Angeles, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo, all of those highlighted counties, ICE is not allowed to enter onto your property. Before, and it continues to be the case throughout the rest of the country and the rest of the state of California, ICE can go up into your door and they can knock on your door. They can't do that in these highlighted counties unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. And so I know that there's been chatter of ICE doing just some knock raids where they're just knocking on random people's doors and stuff like that. That's something we really want to well document because that is in clear violation of Kid v. Mayorkas if you're in these counties. And the same goes for apartment buildings. So they can't be in the halls of your apartment building. They certainly can't be knocking on doors of random apartments unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. And when they do have that warrant signed by the judge, they know the address. So they'll knock on that exact address. And so just to highlight that for homes, if you have a front yard, if you have a driveway, if you have a gate, they can't go past that. They can't go past the sidewalk unless they have that warrant signed for the judge. And so I'll skip through this just because we went over this already. At schools, and I'll say for schools, for places of worship, and hospitals, we saw the rescinding of the sensitive locations memo, which was policy of the Department of Homeland Security that immigration enforcement would not be taking place in what are known as sensitive locations, schools, hospitals, places of worship. The Trump administration rescinded that memo, and they've also signaled that they do plan to prioritize those places for immigration enforcement. Thankfully, here in California, we have SB 54, which is our sanctuary law in the state, which protects schools, hospitals, places of worship. It continues to protect those places as safe spaces. And so the same kind of things apply. They can't enter into a school without a warrant signed by a judge. We've worked with San Bernardino Unified School District, with Moreno Valley School District. We've working with a couple of other school districts right now too, so that they can have clear resolutions in which they are training their staff, district staff and school staff to know that they do not have to allow ICE to enter their schools, to enter their classrooms without a warrant signed by a judge. In cases in which they do have a warrant signed by a judge, they're only allowed to speak to investigate, to search that one person that they have a warrant signed for. And so this is important to recognize for schools, hospitals, and places of worship. We went over that already. On the road and traveling, one last thing I wanted to highlight, in addition to the many things that Chris highlighted, is that Customs and Border Patrol will operate within that 100-mile radius. So San Bernardino, Riverside County, we're certainly within that radius. ICE does not conduct traffic stops. So they're not going to stop you because you passed the red light or something like that. That'll be your local police. And if it is your police, then you obviously do have to give them your documents, your driver's license and all that. If it is ICE, you do not have to give them your documents, and the same rules apply, that you have the right to remain silent. And lastly, I just want to share, we have a legal department. We encourage folks to get a legal consultation. I think we'll be sharing in the chat. We have a one-pager that has a bunch of different legal providers in the Inland Empire. We, ICIJ, host and convene the Inland Empire Legal Roundtable, which is a collective of legal providers in the Inland Empire that offer legal services at pro bono or low bono. And so we encourage all to get a consult, and also our hotline. This is our hotline number, 24/7. It's available to call, to text, to leave voicemails. You can send us videos, you can send us photos. Whenever you see immigration enforcement in your communities, or you suspect to see immigration enforcement in your communities, we encourage you to call us in. And please share that with us. That activates our rapid response network. We are leading a rapid response network in the IE, in which we have hundreds of dispatchers ready throughout San Bernardino and Riverside counties to go out to act as legal observers, to provide resources in case someone has been picked up by immigration enforcement. And so we encourage all folks to have this number saved on their phone. And I'll yield back to some of the folks at San Bernardino Community Service Center if we still have some time.
Hi, thank you, Hector, for that. So I want to start off. My name is Laura Reyes, and I'm the Associate Director with the San Bernardino Community Service Center. We are located in the city of San Bernardino, but we serve the Riverside San Bernardino and Inyo counties. We are a nonprofit organization that was established in 2008, and we're recognized by the U.S. Department of Justice to legally represent individuals and provide legal assistance. We annually serve about higher than about 7,000 individuals within those counties. And what we do, we have different departments, but our expertise is immigration legal services and affirmative and defensive immigrations services. So we conduct we conduct family petitions, adjustment of status, DACA, naturalization, U visa, T visa, and TPS, advanced parole. We also, like I mentioned, conduct immigration or removal defense work in asylum and cancellation of removal. We support community organizations, other CBOs, faith-based organizations, and different educational institutions with Know Your Rights presentations and other topics of concern in the community. We also host naturalization classes for individuals who are in the process of obtaining U.S. citizenship through the naturalization process. And we also have civic engagement classes as well. We recently launched last year an advocacy department, which is focused more on UUMs and victims of domestic violence and other violent crimes. We also conduct capacity building support for other organizations, other CBOs within the region that want to build their legal department or expand their legal department and provide that support for those organizations and their staff. So that's a little bit of the different things that SBCSC does. I'll go ahead and share a flyer in the chat so that you all can have our contact information and a list of the different resources or the different services that we provide. And I want to also take an opportunity to thank Congresswoman Eloise Gomez-Reyes for the invitation and the opportunity to share about our resources, and to the other agencies for also sharing valuable information. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Russell Haudegi, who's one of SBC's staff attorneys, for any questions that there may be in the public.
So let me just say that we're working with the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice to put together a service provider list that is going to be on, I believe, the chat that Hector mentioned, because we have to identify those organizations and attorneys that will actually be representing people who are detained and also in deportation defense. So we have a work to see who's got the capacity and which organizations will be working on representing people both in detention and those people who are going through the deportation process. It is on the list that Hector will provide you. And so that's all I really have to say for now. And we'll take some questions if we have time.
Thank you. Thank you, Hector, and I see for IJ for your rapid response during these recent ICE raids, ICE and Border Patrol operations, and for informing the community. You have helped so many families. And thank you, Attorney Haudegi and Laura, for the valuable information and resources you offer. Community, thank you for joining us today. Let's give a virtual round of applause to our presenters. Up next, we will be going over for time to answer a few questions, which will be led by Maha Rizzi from Senator Eloise Gomez-Reyes' office.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you received important information from our amazing presenters. We have some questions in the chat. We will try to answer as many as we can. I know we're kind of going over time. Okay, the first question, let me see. Okay, one of the questions is, can non-Hispanic immigrants use the services that we talked about today? I know that we have focused on a lot of communities, but I just want to confirm with everyone, like anyone could use your services.
The answer is yes. We represent Afghan clients in asylum cases. So yes, it's anyone. We'll serve anybody.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Another question, can ICE agents ask for your ID and or search your belongings, like wallets or purse?
They definitely can, will ask you to. They'll definitely ask you for your ID, and they'll definitely ask if they can search your belongings. That is when you say no. Like I alluded earlier, if you're being stopped by ICE while you're on the road, ICE won't stop you for a traffic stop, so you don't have to give them your driver's license, all of that other information. If they try to search your belongings, like your purse, if they try to search the rest of your car, you need to very clearly, very unambiguously state that you are not consenting to that search. If it's safe to do so, please do record, because any evidence that is gathered outside of legitimate searches cannot be used in court. And so we can get that evidence thrown out in whatever kind of proceeding goes next, because it wasn't obtained through a legitimate warrant.
Thank you. Next question is, I'm a healthcare provider in San Bernardino County. Does ICE have a right to enter the hospital and or request information on a patient? I assume only if they have a warrant signed by a judge. And what do we do if they approach us on hospital ground?
The answer is, go ahead, Hector, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's true that it is only if they have a judicial warrant signed, and of course that warrant signed is gonna be for a specific person, and so they only are able to search or speak to that person that they have the warrant for. This is also why it's important, Chris alluded to this in his presentation, why it's important for employers, hospitals, schools, whatever organization you are, to clearly state what is public space and what is private space. What is public space of the hospital? What is I, as a client, as a patient, as a random person off the street, what can I enter and what can I not? Because that'll be the same case for ICE. So if you're a grocery store, obviously you can go in, you can shop amongst the products, but you can't go into the break room. And so for hospitals too, it's important to clarify what is public and what is private space. ICE cannot enter private space. Employers should definitely deny them entry by private space unless they have that judicially signed warrant. And again, if they do have the judicially signed warrant, they can only search or speak to that one person that's on the warrant, not everyone.
Yeah, so for example, they can probably get into a lobby, okay, but any kind of room where there's patients or the doctors have their records and patient files, they're not going to be able to get in unless they have a warrant. And plus, those records are protected by also other federal laws. So unless they have a warrant, they're not going to get
in. Okay. Chris, do you have anything else to add? Okay. If not, I'm going to the next question. I'm a naturalized citizen and I have been questioned by law enforcement. Would I have to carry my ID or license to prove myself?
If you're a U.S. citizen, you don't really have to, but in these times, it may be wise just to at least carry your driver's license, because as we've been seeing in other areas, U.S. citizens have been stopped and they have been detained. So it might be a good idea just to at least have your driver's license with you. Now, again, you have the right not to answer those questions, answer their questions if they ask you where you're born. I've seen things on video where U.S. citizens have refused to answer questions, okay, about where they were born, because they have the right to remain silent. They also have the right to remain silent. So it really depends on you. You can carry like your driver's license around if you want, if they ask for it, but they don't really have that right to ask for it, because they can only legitimately ask for immigration docs, nothing else.
Thank you.
And technically there's, sorry.
No, go on.
Technically they're supposed to let you go if you claim that you're a citizen. But we ask that if you're an ally that you follow the same processes and guidelines. And just so that it's everyone that's exercising their rights, so that they can't single out the undocumented community as the only ones that are doing so. We want to make sure that if you're an ally, that you're exercising those rights to remain silent and to not identify yourself as well.
Okay, thank you. What kind of documentation documentation should someone with DACA have on themselves at all time during this time?
They should have their work permit on them at all times. That's for sure.
Thank you. Can ICE arrest or detain a child or young adult without a parent around?
It really depends on how old the child is. Okay, so they shouldn't be asking questions of children, but given these times, they usually will not arrest children unless they're with a parent. Okay, and so because if it's an infant or someone that is too young to basically invoke their rights, then the parent would probably have to do it for them. Okay, so but they usually in any kind of a arrest situation, if they get into a house, which again, that's the importance of having knowing that they must have a warrant. They're usually not gonna. Usually, if it's a family involved and they have parents, they'll go after the parents first and then the kids.
Thank you. As a nonprofit organization, how should we react in case officers come to our office?
You should have the same kind of guidelines, and the staff should all be aware of those guidelines on what to do if ICE were to show up to your office. And also going back to, you should have designated private and public spaces, private spaces in which they would not have access. And everyone should know the difference between an administrative warrant, a judicial warrant, especially, whoever's in leadership at that nonprofit. And you don't have to honor, obviously, administrative warrants or no warrants at all.
I would also add that the organization should designate an authorized individual, although the whole staff should be aware of what these orders look like and what the procedure is going to look like internally. The organization should designate one or two, a couple of individuals that are going to be the point person to authorize entry if the documents are appropriate.
Thank you. Is advanced parole still available for DACA recipients? Is it advisable to travel outside the country given the current situation to try to adjust status?
Yes, advanced parole is still available for DACA, but again, we have to look who's the president, right? And so we can't, I would say it's a decision that you have to make, because yes, it's still available, but given the current climate that we have, if you come back in and you have a Customs Border Patrol officer that doesn't know the law, doesn't know that it is available still under DACA, I just can't guarantee what kind of. Yes, technically it is still available, yes.
If you have a pending immigration petition in place, should beneficiary carry a copy of pending petition or approved FL 130, for example? How about for U visas or T visas?
Yeah, I would carry it around. Yes, because I've been reading other immigration lawyers have also suggested if you have proof, any kind of proof of pending, carry it around with you. Okay, but again, it's not a guarantee, because the petition that's pending, you don't have your status yet. It's not a guarantee. We can't guarantee that you're not. We're just gonna let you walk. They still may put you in proceedings. It really all depends on the officer, because again, right now there is no prosecutorial discretion, and so even having proof of your status may not be enough for them not to detain you. But yes, you can try it.
Otra pregunta es, ¿qué podemos hacer si nos detiene el CBP y vamos manejando? The question was, what can we do if CBP detains us and we're driving?
Russell, you're muted.
They have the right to remain silent, as I think as Hector's pointed out, and also Christopher, they have the right to remain silent about their status. They can say their name and their address, but they have the right to remain silent about if they ask where they were born, if they ask what country you're from. they have the right to remain silent about that. Okay, so they do have the right to remain silent even if they're stopped by the Border Patrol in their car. So yes, they do have the right to remain silent.
I think we have time for one more question. And if there's questions that weren't answered, we can send a follow-up as well. If you tell ICE that you're a US citizen and then they ask where you were born, can you then choose not to answer or remain silent?
You could, yes. You have the right to remain silent.
Yeah.
And then I would contact the local ACLU to sue them.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I would just add to, and this is something Chris alluded to too, in terms of allies, people who do have documentation still following these protocols to be in allyship with those who don't. That is highly encouraged, but I would also like to know that you can still possibly be detained for, a number of hours. So this is at your own risk. Like even if you are a US citizen, but you're choosing not to cooperate with their questions, you still do run that risk of, them detaining you for a couple hours until they figure out your documentation or whatever. So
And there have been US citizens been detained. We know that. So it's basically your call, right? It's your call.
Yep.
Thank you all for answering our questions and for presenting on vital information for our community. I am going to bring back Senator Eloise Gomez-Reyes for some closing remarks.
Senator, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much, Maha. On behalf of Assemblymember Robert Garcia and myself, I want to thank all of you who are participating, who are listening in, who are asking the questions. I also want to specifically thank Chirla. Christopher, thank you so much for the work that you have done, the work that Chirla has done over the years. It's always great to partner with you. I want to thank our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, especially Sarah Farouk. Sarah, thank you for being with us and providing the input from our Attorney General. Consul de Mexico, Julio Huerta, and Alexis Medina, muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for being with us and for providing information about what Mexican nationals can do if they are arrested. That's important information, and we thank you for that. IC4IJ, Hector, your information is always spot on, and thank you for the rapid response on the questions that were asked. From the San Bernardino County Service Center, I can tell you that I have called on them for years, asking for legal assistance for our immigrant community. Russell and Laura, thank you for providing that information. Russell, thank you for always taking my calls. And thank you for helping with the rapid response questions. From Assemblymember Robert Garcia's office, we had Ulises, Nadia, and the District Director, Daisy. I want to thank them for helping to put this together. And from my office, Maria and my District Director, Maha. Resources are available. Our offices want to make sure that you have the information you need so that you feel empowered, so that you know what to do if you are ever detained or if you ever ask questions or if others ask you. This information is for our families, for our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our neighbors, our coworkers. This is information to help all of us. If you receive the information and you won't need it, there will be somebody else who will need it. And you can always direct them to Assemblymember Garcia's office, to my office, or to any of the others who have presented here today, because we are all available to you. With that, I want to thank everyone, including Congressman Pete Aguilar, Congresswoman Norma Torres, Sabrina, Maha, I didn't get to see everybody that was on the list. Senator Sabrina Cervantes, Senator Susan Rubio, Senator Steve Padilla, Assemblymember Dr. Corey Jackson, and so many others who joined us in making sure that we could provide this information to you. Again, thank you all so much. Remember, we are a resource to you. My Assembly member, Robert Garcia, his office is a resource to you. We're here for you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.